A recent report has revealed the next move for the Minnesota Vikings here in this offseason, detailing that a former starting offensive lineman may be out of a spot here in this year. We're going to be breaking that down, as well as a recent report detailing where J.J. McCarthy ranks among the 32 starting quarterbacks, and it is very interesting. You're going to want to stick around, hear what we have to say for that at the end of the video. Very quickly, before we jump into it here, though, we notice that just over 90% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Minnesota Vikings news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button, join us here on the channel. We're on the road to 2K, and your support has been absolutely phenomenal as of late. But without any further ado, let's jump into this here with our first quote, going over the new, former starting offensive lineman in Blake Brandel, who could be released in this year. And this is what Christopher Knox from Bleacher Report said about this. Guard Blake Brandel was a 17-game starter for Minnesota Vikings last season after spending his first year on the practice squad and 3 as a depth player. Knox wrote on May 16th, however, his time as a starter may already be over, with the Vikings acquiring Will Fries in free agency before drafting Donovan Jackson in round 1. This likely pushes Brandel back into a depth role, and the Vikings could save $1.6 million by releasing him. Now, there are a few different things we can think about here when it does come down to having Blake Brandel on the roster versus releasing him. We know that Blake Brandel was very solid for his time, and of course, I still don't think he's at that starting level just yet, but not saying that he will not be at some point throughout his career. But when we go to look at the offensive line here and the depth of the offensive line, I think Blake Brandel has certainly made himself at least the 6th offensive lineman here, guaranteed, wherever he may play, whether it is tackle, whether it is guard. He's showed that he's been able to play both at a consistent level, and keeping on this lineup may be the smarter thing for the Vikings to do. We know that injuries were very, very much an issue last year for the offensive line. Brian O'Neill was going down. We saw Christian Darrisaw go down, and ultimately just wasn't able to stay healthy a lot of this offensive line, which caused many issues throughout the season where Sam Darnold was under heavy pressure throughout the year. And Blake Brandel was one of those players who may not be up to the level of the guys here on the starting roster, but definitely have been able to fill a spot in if needed, if there's an injury that occurs, or for a game or two here and there. And, having that on the roster right now, comparing to saving $1.6 million, if the Vikings choose to make another move, then you might kind of go out and make that extra 1.6. But if they kind of decide to stick with what they want, we saw there's a possibility of Stephon Gilmore coming back, Shaq Griffin coming back. But having Blake Brandel here on this roster, I think to me, is probably the better option right now. And I want to know what you guys think here in the comments below. Even though Blake Brandel is that backup style of role, he's a utility player that we can use at tackle, at guard, wherever we need to if an injury does occur. But going back in 2022, Brandel stepped up as a starter for left tackle for 3 games when Christian Darrisaw was sidelined due to the injury. Played well, suffered an injury that placed him on the injury reserve in December. The Vikings re-signed him to a 3-year, $9.5 million contract extension in March of 2024, so they clearly value him at least at some depth piece. And, I feel like that is the main idea going into this. The depth piece is the idea that the Vikings have been looking for. They've come out and said that they want depth this year. They want to have the depth everywhere on this team in case of injury, in case someone may be having a down game or whatnot. Being able to have many different assets to use throughout the week, throughout a game, is very important to the Vikings. I think Blake Brandel brings that exactly to the table. We saw Cam Robinson come in at left tackle when ultimately we saw Darrisaw go down, Brandel go down, and Brandel's proved that he can be this role that we need him to be, to fill in for somebody, but also has been able to be that, I would say B to C tier starter if needed. And the offensive line right now, that was the big thing that we wanted to get better to help J.J. McCarthy out, and it certainly did that in the offseason. And whether or not Blake Brandel's contract extension was thought about when it does come down to reevaluating this offensive line, you have to assume it was. So with this contract extension, at least in my mind, the Vikings are looking to keep Brandel, but this report may shine some light on some different things that they have going on. So let me know what you think about that as well. But his ability to play both guard and tackle positions have made him an asset. He has also taken 273 snaps at left tackle, 164 at right guard. But Knox has a point. After Minnesota's offseason, there may not be room for him anymore. So, and there's a 50-50 chance with both of this. I think it'll be interesting to see what the Vikings choose to do. Not just that, but also what they want to go about and really find in Blake Brandel this year? Do they feel like they have a role for him? Do they feel like he can be a solid backup that they were hoping for? I think that's the big question. So let me know what you think about that. But when it comes to the offensive line, that was revamped for JJ McCarthy, who was given a bit of praise here as of late with the PFF, with going over their 32 NFL quarterback rankings and putting JJ McCarthy in a very interesting spot ahead of some very interesting people. And this is what we're going to bring up right here. John Costco from PFF. I'm leaning on my personal evaluations here. As I have McCarthy in the top quarterback in the 2024 NFL Draft, we didn't get to see him as a rookie. But his 2023 campaign at Michigan, where he earned a 92.2 PFF grade and a 93.4 passing grade, highlighted everything you want in a young passer. He's fully healthy in 2025, if he is. Considering what Sam Darnold managed this offseason, McCarthy is set up for success. And of course, a big part of that is due to Kevin O'Connell. He's been a very good quarterback coach, the quarterback whisperer, they're calling him on the field. And it really goes to show what he's been able to do with Sam Darnold, what he was able to do with anybody who was there. Josh Dobbs for those times. It really went to go and show that, any quarterback you put in the system with Kevin O'Connell will work out. And when it comes down to it, this is what we have. J.J. McCarthy ranks ahead of Caleb Williams in the QB rankings. And despite a lot of negativity surrounding the Vikings and the uncertainty with McCarthy, not everyone sees this as a negative. One of those is Pro Football Focus John Costco, who has McCarthy at 21st ranked starting quarterback going into the season, despite have never played a game in the NFL. And now, this is kind of interesting where we put him. Of course, you can kind of have to go off his college stuff. You have to go off what you've seen in practice, what you've seen in last preseason, because there is nothing to go off for J.J. McCarthy in the NFL. But when you're coming down to his assets, and when you're coming down to not just Kevin O'Connell, when you're coming down to the offensive line, to the wide receivers this team has, it makes sense that you're putting J.J. McCarthy ahead of some of these names, especially like Caleb Williams, who may not have every asset, still has uncertainty with the coaching staff there, and of course now is finally have someone that he can actually trust and go down to it. And it's going to be a much better year for Caleb Williams. I hate to say that, but it's going to be, and we have to kind of really adapt to that. So putting J.J. McCarthy ahead of him right now is something that I'm very excited to hear and see about and kind of see what progresses, because I do fully believe that this is the right place to put him, and I do fully think that he will be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You can write me up on that and come back at the end of the season. If I'm wrong, shout me out, call me out, whatever you want. But I do think J.J. McCarthy is going to have a great season here. And if you believed in McCarthy in the NFL draft, then it would be difficult not to believe in him with Kevin O'Connell at the helm. He's maximized every quarterback he's had in the building while being the Vikings head coach. J.J. McCarthy has every bit of talent as the likes of Kirk Cousins, Josh Dobbs, and Sam Darnold. And that's one thing I'm completely willing to go. And, it's not like Kevin O'Connell didn't focus on Kirk Cousins, Josh Dobbs, or Sam Darnold. We know that he put everything he had into those quarterbacks while they were playing for the Vikings, whatever it was, whether it was Sam Darnold for the 1 year, Josh Dobbs for a handful of games. But you have to think that Kevin O'Connell's mind is coming to J.J. McCarthy as the franchise quarterback for this team, one that they have not had in decades. And he wants to make sure that this was the right pick, this was the right play, and they know he's the right player. And I think that Kevin O'Connell is lucky to have J.J. McCarthy, and J.J. McCarthy is lucky to have Kevin O'Connell. I think these two are really going to work out well together as well with this offensive line, with the weapons they have, and I'm very excited to see how this is. I've been saying it just about every video that this season is going to be special for the Vikings. Run it back, try and get it back. And with teams projecting that the Vikings are going to be the worst in the NFC North, I'm so excited to once again prove them wrong. But that's all I got in this video. I want to know what you guys think right now about J.J. McCarthy here. What do you think your ranking in the top 32 would be for him of the starting quarterbacks? As well as let me know what you think about Blake Brandel. Do you want to keep him as a depth piece, or do you think that $1.6 million could be used somewhere else? Let me know what you think about all of that, but that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.